In the days when the Persian Empire stretched across lands beyond counting, from India to Ethiopia, ruled by the powerful yet impulsive king Ahasuerus, also known as Xerxes, the fate of an entire people quietly shifted behind palace walls of marble and gold. For in the heart of this vast empire lived a scattered nation, the Jews, exiles far from their homeland, surviving by faith, memory, and hope. And among them was a young orphan girl named Hadassah, known by her Persian name Esther, raised by her cousin Mordecai, a humble yet wise man who taught her not only the customs of her people, but the fear of the Lord. Though neither of them could foresee how God was already weaving unseen threads of destiny through royal banquets, whispered conspiracies, and sleepless nights. And it began with a feast unlike any other, when King Ahasuerus displayed the riches of his kingdom in a celebration lasting many days. And in his pride and drunkenness, he commanded Queen Vashti to appear before the nobles to show her beauty. But she refused, and her defiance shook the throne itself, for the king's advisors feared her refusal would inspire rebellion among the women of the empire. And so Vashti was removed from her royal position, leaving an empty crown that would soon be placed upon the head of a girl chosen not by chance but by divine design. And thus a search was declared throughout the empire for young women to be brought to the citadel of Susa. And Esther, though modest and reluctant, was taken among them, hiding her Jewish identity as Mordecai advised. And from the moment she entered the palace, favor followed her like a shadow of grace, for she pleased Haggai, the keeper of the women, and was given special care, cosmetics, and preparation. And when the time came for her to stand before the king, Esther did not rely on beauty alone, but carried a quiet dignity that stirred the king's heart. And above all others, she found favor in his eyes. And he placed the royal crown upon her head, making her queen in place of Vashti, though neither king nor court realized that God had just positioned his chosen instrument at the center of imperial power. Meanwhile, Mordecai, who sat at the king's gate, uncovered a plot by two officials to assassinate the king, and he reported it through Esther, saving the king's life, though the deed was recorded and quickly forgotten, waiting for the precise moment God would call it to memory. And rising in influence within the court was Haman the Agagite, a man swollen with pride, appointed above all other officials, who demanded that all bow before him. But Mordecai refused, not out of arrogance, but conscience, for he would not bow to any man in a way that belonged only to God. And when Haman learned that Mordecai was a Jew, his rage burned so fiercely that it was not enough to destroy one man. He resolved to annihilate an entire people, and through deception and flattery, he persuaded the king to issue a decree sealing the destruction of all Jews on a single appointed day, casting lots, known as to choose the time, while Haman rejoiced and the city of Susa was thrown into confusion. And when Mordecai learned of the decree, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and cried out bitterly, urging Esther to act. But Esther trembled, for approaching the king uninvited could mean death. Yet Mordecai's words pierced her heart like a divine summons, reminding her that silence would not save her, and that perhaps she had come to royal position for such a time as this. And in that moment, Esther chose courage over fear, faith over safety, and she called for fasting among all the Jews, declaring that she would go to the king. And if she perished, she perished. And after days of fasting and prayer, Esther clothed herself in royal garments and stood in the inner court, her heart pounding like thunder as the king lifted his eyes and saw her. And by God's mercy he extended the golden scepter, granting her life and favor, promising to give her whatever she asked, even to half the kingdom. Yet Esther, guided by wisdom, invited the king and Haman to a banquet, and then to another, weaving patience into her plan as God worked behind the scenes. And that very night, when Haman returned home boasting of his honor, Yet burning with hatred for Mordecai, he built gallows to hang him upon, believing victory was near. But that same night the king could not sleep, and in the turning of pages from the royal chronicles, Mordecai's forgotten act of loyalty was read aloud. And in a stunning reversal, Haman was commanded to honor the very man he planned to destroy, leading Mordecai through the city in royal robes, proclaiming honor instead of death. And at the second banquet, Esther finally revealed her identity and exposed Haman's wicked plot. And the king, enraged, ordered Haman executed on the gallows he had built for Mordecai. And though the decree could not be revoked, a new decree was issued allowing the Jews to defend themselves. And on the appointed day, the people were saved, their enemies defeated, and sorrow was turned into celebration. And thus the Feast of Purim was established, a lasting reminder that God's name, though never spoken openly in the story, was present in every moment, every delay, every reversal, proving that divine providence does not always arrive with thunder and fire, but often moves silently through courage, obedience, and perfect timing. And the story of Queen Esther stands as an eternal testament that God raises the humble, protects his people, and turns schemes of destruction into stories of deliverance, reminding every generation that even in exile, even in silence, God is always at work behind the scenes.